Hello everyone. First I want to thank you for the kind words that you had to say regarding last week's video. It was very encouraging, and I would try to continue with a weekly review of the Torah portion of each week. Our weekly portion is the portion of Mishpatim, which roughly translates to English as ordinances, ruling, judgments, or legal matters. And today I want to focus on the first 6 versions of the weekly portion. These verses deal with laws concerning slavery. Unfortunately, I won't have the time today to address the major question of the institution of slavery in the Bible, at least not in detail, and how it is even philosophically possible that God would permit such a thing as slavery. But I am going to address some issues which may shed some light on this philosophical question. Now, I want to start by reading the first 6 verses, Hebrew and English, and then we'll talk about them. ואלה המשפטים אשר תשים לפניהם, כי תקנה עבד עברי 6 שנים יעבוד, ובשביעית יצא לחופשי חינם. אם בגפו יבוא, בגפו יצא, ואם בעל אישה הוא, ויצאה אשתו עמו. אם אדוניו ייתן לו אישה, וילדה לו בנים או בנות, האישה וילדיה תהיה לאדוניה, והוא יצא בגפו. ואם אמור יאמר העבד, אהבתי את אדוני, את אשתי ואת בניי, לא אצא חופשי. והגישו אדוניו אל האלוהים, והגישו אל הדלת או אל המזוזה, ורצה אדוניו את אוזנו במרצע, ועבדו לעולם. Now these are the first 6 verses of the weekly portion, Mishpatim, and I'll give you the English version now. And these are the ordinances which you are to set before them. If you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall serve for 6 years, but on the 7th he shall go out as a free man without payment. If he comes alone, he shall go out alone. If he is a husband of a wife, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall belong to her master, and he shall go out alone. And now listen carefully, because these are the verses I'm going to discuss. But if the slave plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out as a free man, then his master shall bring him to God. Then he shall bring him to the door or the doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him permanently. Now, first of all, as you can see from the verses we've read, but from other places in the Hebrew Bible mentioning slaves and slavery, these are not really laws concerning slavery, but more laws concerning the release of slaves and legal matters related to the ending of slavery. Anyway, roughly over 90% of the material concerning slavery is actually concerning the release of slaves and I wouldn't say abolishment of slavery, but definitely the releasing of slaves. And especially in our case, okay, the 6 verses dealing with slaves, except for verse 1, which serves as a title for the whole portion, are built in a very nice structure, a very classical legal formulation in the Hebrew Bible, presenting the major case in the first verse with the opening word ki tikne eved ivri, ki, and then followed by subsections of the same legal case, each opening with the Hebrew word im, if, in verses 3, 4, and 5. And as we've explained last week, the justice system of the Hebrew Bible is corresponding with the righteousness and justness of the Lord, okay? And this is what makes the nation of Israel unique, as we can see in Deuteronomy 4:8, when it is said, ומי גוי גדול אשר לו חוקים ומשפטים צדיקים ככל התורה הזאת אשר אני נותן לפניכם היום. Or in English, or what great nation is there that has statutes and judgments as righteous as this whole law which I am setting before you today. So the nation of Israel is unique by its legal decisions, legal aspects. And today I want to compare the laws concerning the release of a slave, as we've seen in the verses that were read before, with the Mesopotamian laws as they appear in the laws of Hammurabi. Maybe a few words about Hammurabi are due. Hammurabi was a Babylonian king. He was the king of Babylon, whose law code was the most famous in the ancient world before the Torah was given to the Israelites in the desert. And his law code is arranged as a series of legal cases and decisions. The emphasis of his code is civil, economical emphasis. There are no general commands, as we've seen with the Ten Commandments, that are formulated in a decisive general command. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery. In Hammurabi's law code we have legal cases and decisions. Unfortunately, sometimes people tend to be dismayed even from the comparison between the Torah and Hammurabi, but I don't see a reason indeed to be concerned or afraid or to have any reason to be against such a comparison. The Torah was given to the Hebrews in a certain period of time, in a certain language, with a certain social, historical, philosophical background. And exactly as we exhaust every possible way to understand the language of the Bible, we should try to understand the world surrounding the Bible, and the ideas of that world, the cultures that the Hebrews were surrounded by, especially so we can see the differences between the Hebrews and the other cultures, and between the Bible and between the other laws. And today I want to focus on the last two verses, verses 5 and 6. And in these verses the Torah deals with what seemed to be a rare case. In this case, the slave refuses to be released. He expresses his love towards his family, towards his master, and he doesn't want to be released. And the Torah commands us to cut off a piece of his ear. Okay, this seems rather extreme. Okay, he wants to stay. Okay, let him stay, or something like that. And it is very interesting to see that the cutting of the ear is also mentioned in the Hammurabi law code. Okay, which we've mentioned beforehand. In the last case presented in the law code of Hammurabi, we can see the following, and I'll read the Akkadian and then the English. Shumma wardum anabeli shu ulbeli ata iktabi kima warasu ukan shuma belshu uzunshu inakis. Which roughly translates as, if a slave says to his master, "You are not my master," if they convict him, if they prove that he is, his master shall cut off his ear. In both cases we've got the cutting of the ear, and it is very interesting to see how how similar the Hebrew and the Akkadian are. The slave is telling the master, Ul beli ata, almost identical to the Hebrew Lo Baali ata. The Babylonians simply could not pronounce the guttural letters, so instead of having an ayin, as in the Hebrew word Baal, they had the long A vowel. So Bel, the Mesopotamian deity Bel mentioned in Isaiah, is actually the Western Semitic, or what we know from the Hebrew Bible and from Canaanite culture as Baal. We know Baal Zebub and other names of the Baal, which literally is master, Lord. Also the independent personal pronoun for the second person masculine singular, Ata, you, is identical in the Hebrew and the Akkadian. Anyway, in both cases we see the cutting of the ear, but how different are the circumstances? While in the code of Hammurabi, the cutting of the ear is done to a runaway slave, to a slave who denies his master, in the Hebrew Bible the same action is taken against a slave who wants to stay with his master, a slave who denies freedom, a slave who can conceive a situation in which there is a human being above him and not God. Okay, the Hebrews are the slaves of God according to the Bible, and they can have no other master upon him. This is a lesson that we should learn from the comparison between the two different codes. Furthermore, if we carefully examine the ordinances of the weekly portion, we would be able to see that they are organized in a way which corresponds to the Ten Commandments. Okay, the laws concerning slavery, and especially this law which we've mentioned concerning the cutting of the ear, okay, are corresponding with the first commandment, starting, I am the Lord your God, etc., etc., and continuing with, you shall have no other gods al panai, which is alongside me or before me or with me. And the Hebrew Bible, okay, even though recognizing the institution of slavery, at least at that time, is obviously not content by it, and as it is clear to the Hebrew Bible that it is a monotheistic religion in which the Hebrews are the servants of God, it is clear to them that they shall have no other servant. And we can clearly see this tendency to minimize and being very critic of the slavery institution in these verses. And this is the idea of slavery being against monotheism. Basically, if you have one master, it is only the Lord. So Shabbat Shalom, and again thank you for all your kind words.